The most important contract in the history of the global economy expired on June 9, 2024. It was not reported on the nightly news. It was not debated in Congress. It was allowed to die in silence. I am talking about the 50-year agreement between the United States and Saudi Arabia. The agreement that established the petrodollar system. For half a century, this deal was the bedrock of American power. The United States provided military protection to the Saudi kingdom. In exchange, Saudi Arabia agreed to price oil exclusively in United States dollars. This forced every nation on earth to hold dollars. If you wanted energy, you had to buy the American currency first. It gave the United States a superpower that no other nation had. It allowed America to print money without creating hyperinflation because the rest of the world absorbed those dollars to buy oil. But that deal is dead. And while the media tells you it is just a formality, the reality is much darker. The Saudis did not just let the contract expire because they were bored. They let it expire because they have found a better system. A system that does not rely on New York or London. A system that does not use the SWIFT payment network. A system that cannot be sanctioned or weaponized by politicians in Washington. While you were sleeping, a new digital infrastructure went live. It is called Project Enbridge, and it is the financial equivalent of a nuclear weapon aimed directly at the heart of the United States Treasury. In this deep dive, I am going to show you the blueprint of this new system. I am going to explain how the central banks of China and the UAE have built a digital highway that bypasses the dollar completely. And I will explain why the recent bond sell-off by India is just the first domino in a chain reaction that ends the era of paper money and begins the era of energy money. The death of SWIFT. To understand why Project Enbridge exists, you have to understand the weapon it was built to destroy. That weapon is SWIFT. Most people think SWIFT is just a neutral messaging system for banks. They think it is like the email of the financial world. But in 2022, the United States turned SWIFT into a weapon of war. When they froze the reserves of the Russian central bank, they sent a message to the entire world. The message was clear. If you hold dollars, your money is not your money. It belongs to the United States government, and they can take it away whenever they disagree with your foreign policy. This was a strategic mistake of historic proportions. It terrified the rest of the world. Saudi Arabia watched this and realized their assets were vulnerable. China watched this and accelerated their timeline. India watched this and began dumping bonds. They all realized that relying on a payment system controlled by their geopolitical rival was suicide. They needed an escape hatch. But you cannot just stop using the dollar overnight if there is no alternative. You need a new plumbing system for global trade. You need a way to move billions of value across borders instantly without touching a U.S. bank. For 10 years, this was considered impossible. The network effect of the dollar was too strong. But technology has changed the game. The rise of central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, has created a backdoor, and Project Enbridge is the key that unlocks it. The blueprint, Project Enbridge, is not a theory. It is not a white paper written by academics. It is a live platform developed by the Bank for International Settlements Innovation Hub. The founding members include the People's Bank of China, the Central Bank of the United Arab Emirates, the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, and the Bank of Thailand. Notice the composition of that group. You have the world's factory in China. You have the world's energy hub in the UAE. And you have the key trading hubs of Southeast Asia. So how does it work? In the old system, if a company in China wanted to buy oil from the UAE, the transaction had to go through a correspondent, bank in New York. The money had to be converted into dollars. It had to be cleared by U.S. regulators. It took days to settle. And at every step, the United States government could see the transaction and stop it. Enbridge eliminates the middleman entirely. It uses a shared ledger technology similar to blockchain, but controlled by central banks. It allows the Chinese digital yuan to be swapped directly for the UAE digital dirham. The transaction happens in seconds. It happens peer-to-peer. And most importantly, it happens off the grid of the Western financial system. No U.S. bank touches the money. No U.S. regulator sees the transaction. No U.S. sanction can stop the trade. This is the kill switch. It renders the power of the U.S. Treasury Department obsolete. If Saudi Arabia sells oil to China via Enbridge, the demand for the U.S. dollar in that transaction drops to zero. Multiply that by thousands of transactions a day. Multiply that by the entire global energy market. You are looking at a catastrophic collapse in the demand for U.S. dollars. This explains why Saudi Arabia let the petrodollar deal expire. They do not need the dollar anymore. They have the technology to trade directly with their biggest customers in their own currencies. This is not just an economic shift. It is a geopolitical revolution. For 50 years, the United States could print money to pay for its military and its imports because the world needed dollars for oil. Enbridge breaks that link. It means the United States will have to pay for things with value, not with promises. And as we are about to see, the United States is running very low on value. The physics game. Now we have to connect the technology to the assets. A payment system is just a pipe. What matters is what flows through the pipe. In the dollar system, what flows through the pipe is debt. Every dollar is a debt instrument. But in the Enbridge system, the emerging economies are moving towards a concept I call energy money. They want a currency that is backed by physics, not politics. This is where the data from India becomes critical. We know from the Reserve Bank of India reports that they sold over $50 billion in US Treasuries in a single year. We know they reduced their holdings by 21%. Why did they do this? Because they know that in a world of fragmented supply chains, paper promises are worthless. They are moving their wealth into assets that cannot be printed. They are buying gold. They are securing oil contracts. They are building the physical reserves that will be traded on the Enbridge rails. Think of Enbridge as the new digital highway. Gold and oil are the cars driving on that highway. China has been aggressively accumulating gold for 18 consecutive months. They are not buying it to make jewelry. They are buying it to give legitimacy to the digital yuan. They know that no one trusts the Chinese Communist Party, but everyone trusts gold. By linking their digital currency to gold reserves and using Enbridge for settlement, they are creating a currency that is superior to the dollar. The dollar is backed by $38 trillion in debt and a weaponized payment system. The Enbridge unit is backed by industrial capacity, energy reserves, and gold. If you are a nation like Brazil or South Africa or Indonesia, which currency would you rather hold? Would you rather hold the currency that is being debased by inflation and weaponized by sanctions? Or would you rather hold the currency that can buy you the oil and technology you need to run your country? The answer is obvious, and the data proves it. The volume of trade on the Enbridge platform is growing. More central banks are joining as observers. The Saudis officially joined the project recently, which was the final nail in the coffin for the petrodollar. This brings us back to the concept of the Great Reset. The World Economic Forum talks about a reset where you own nothing. But the BRICS nations are executing a different kind of reset. A reset where the West owns nothing because their currency buys nothing. They are returning the world to a system based on commodities. In this system, the country with the most gold and the most energy wins. The country with the most debt loses. The United States has the most debt. China and Russia and the UAE have the energy and the gold. The math is simple. The outcome is inevitable. The convergence? Let's look at how these pieces fit together in real time. You have the technology piece, which is Enbridge, allowing instant sanction-proof trade. You have the asset piece, which is the accumulation of gold by China and India. And you have the geopolitical piece, which is the expiration of the petrodollar deal. These are not separate events. They are a coordinated maneuver. It is a pincer movement designed to trap the US dollar. On one side, you destroy the demand for dollars by settling oil trade in local currencies. On the other side, you destroy the value of the dollar by selling US Treasuries. India sells the bonds. Saudi Arabia stops pricing oil in dollars. China provides the payment rail. The result is a flood of unwanted dollars returning to the United States. When those dollars come home, they cause inflation. Not the supply chain inflation we saw in 2022, but monetary inflation. The kind of inflation that destroys the middle class. The kind of inflation that topples empires. The US government knows this is happening. That is why you see them becoming so aggressive militarily. When an empire loses its economic power, it resorts to kinetic power. The operation in Venezuela was a desperate attempt to secure physical assets because the financial privilege is fading. But you cannot bomb a blockchain. You cannot sanction a decentralized ledger shared by 20 central banks. The technology has outpaced the military. Project Enbridge is the ultimate defensive weapon because it makes the US banking system irrelevant. You cannot freeze assets that you cannot see. You cannot block transactions that do not pass through your servers. The West is fighting a 20th century war with aircraft carriers. The East is fighting a 21st century war with code and commodities. And the code is winning. The volume of gold moving from west to east confirms this. The premiums on gold in Shanghai are consistently higher than in London. This pulls physical metal out of Western vaults and sends it to China. It is a slow-motion bank run. But instead of people lining up at an ATM, nations are lining up at the gold refinery. They are cashing out of the American experiment. The psychological shift. The most dangerous part of this transition is the psychological shift. For 3 generations, the world believed that the dollar was as good as gold. That belief is evaporating. I want to ask you a question that cuts through all the propaganda. If you were a Saudi oil minister and you had to sell 1 million barrels of oil today, would you accept a payment in a currency backed by $38 trillion of debt and a government that threatens to seize your assets? Or would you accept payment in a digital currency that can be instantly converted into gold on the Shanghai exchange? Be honest with yourself. You would take the gold. And that is exactly what they are doing. The media calls it diversification. I call it common sense. The world is moving from a system of trust to a system of verification. The dollar requires trust. Enbridge and gold require verification. You do not have to trust the Chinese government to use Enbridge. You just have to trust the code and the collateral. This shift creates a binary outcome for the global economy. Those who hold assets inside the Enbridge sphere of influence will see their purchasing power protected. Those who hold assets trapped inside the dollar sphere of influence will see their purchasing power eroded. It is a tale of 2 systems. One is rising based on energy and innovation. One is falling based on debt and stagnation. Project Enbridge is the bridge to the new world. The United States has burned the bridge to the old world by weaponizing its currency. There is no going back. The petrodollar is dead. Long live the energy currency. The impact on you. So what does this mean for you living in the United States or Canada? It means that the era of cheap imports is over. For decades, America exported inflation to the rest of the world. Now the rest of the world is sending it back. As the demand for dollars falls, the value of the dollar falls. This makes everything you buy from China more expensive. It makes the gas you put in your car more expensive. It makes the electronics you use more expensive. Your standard of living is directly tied to the reserve status of the dollar. As that status erodes, your standard of living erodes. You will work harder to buy less. This is the mathematical certainty of a currency devaluation. But there is a way to protect yourself. You have to align your portfolio with the new system. You cannot use Enbridge yourself. It is for central banks. But you can own the assets that Enbridge is built to facilitate. You can own gold. You can own silver. You can own energy stocks. You can own the physical things that the world actually needs. The paper wealth of the stock market is an illusion fueled by the dying dollar system. The real wealth of commodities is the foundation of the emerging system. Do not get distracted by the daily price fluctuations. Look at the structural trend. The infrastructure is built. The pilot programs are successful. The political will is there. The transition is happening. The only question is whether you are positioned for it. The Reserve Bank of India has positioned itself. The People's Bank of China has positioned itself. The Saudi Kingdom has positioned itself. They are leaving the dollar behind. They are crossing the bridge. You need to cross it too before the old system collapses completely. Do not wait for the official announcement. There will be no announcement. There will only be a day when your dollars simply do not work the way they used to. That day is coming faster than you think. Prepare now.